Hello, everyone. Welcome. I can see the attendees popping in here, so I'm gonna give it just about 30 seconds before we kick off. But while we're doing that, hello, welcome. Super excited to be here today. I was gonna ask for introductions in the or let us know in the chat, but I don't believe we have the chat active. We do have the Q&A session active, so you will be able
Mhm.
to pop Q&A in there at any point in time. So we only have 30 minutes here to kick this off. So let me jump right in. First, my name is Megan Bozzuto. I'm the president of the International Association of Women, and it is genuinely my honor to be here today
Mhm.
moderating this conversation. We are kicking off Talent Allies Pride Month Career Fair today with a discussion called Pride, Purpose, and Progress, building a career that fits your values. And I truly love that we're starting here because before the job fair, before the applications, before any of that, this is the real work, figuring out who you are, what you stand for, and how to build a professional life that actually reflects all of that.
Mhm.
A quick note before we begin, I do ask that everyone keeps this space respectful and affirming. It's a conversation rooted in belonging. We want that spirit to show up in every corner of it today. Our audience is in view only mode, but as I said, that Q&A feature is open. So if you want to submit your questions or comments there, go right ahead. I'm going to start by letting our panelists introduce themselves. I would love each of them to share just a quick snapshot of your background and where you're at today. Uh, we will get into those paths that brought you there as we
Mhm.
as we journey through the conversation. So, Jeffrey, let's start with you.
Okay, great. Good morning, afternoon, everyone. Jeffrey Sallot. I am the Director of Compliance at Abbvie. I support the R&D organization here in Lake County and around the globe. I reside in San Francisco. I've been with Abbvie for 8 years and look forward to getting to discuss with you my journey.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. And Andrew, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrew Bertke. I'm a senior experience associate on the marketing team here at Land O'Lakes, and I co-lead our Pride Alliance ERG. My day job is helping building marketing communications that connect with members and customers across the country. And my volunteer second job is building community for LGBTQ plus employees and allies at a 100-year-old cooperative. So both have taught me a lot about what it means to bring your whole self to work, and I'm excited to be here with Jeffrey and Megan today. Thank you.
Thank you both so much for saying yes to this. I think these conversations become really important as we help others find their place in their professional journeys. Um, this conversation today is built on the idea of purpose. So I want to start there as the foundation. Jeffrey, I'm going to start with you first on this. What to you does it mean to build a career that truly aligns with your values? And how did you actually figure out what those values were?
Oh, that's on its face. That sounds like a really easy question to answer, but
It does. I was thinking that.
no. But in all honesty, I think it takes you know when you're young and you're excited and trying to get into business and in your industry of choice based on your academic career, you think it's going to be a straight line, and it's not a straight line when you go through life and your career choices. It's making sure though that you have a set of core beliefs that you anchor to and you carry those through. And what I'm anchored to is that people deserve to be protected, heard, and treated with dignity. I identify as I identify as gay. I'm part of the LGBTQ plus community. Okay, I don't identify as the entire list of acronyms, but I identify as gay, and I've been aware of my gayness from a young age. And, I grew up in the Midwest, so it was navigating what that looked like in high school, which was different in college. And then it became different of what is at work. And then um, through this experience, I gravitated to nursing and I gravitated to uh, pharmaceuticals and then I gravitated to law and then have built this amazing 25-year career, all based, I think, in the fact that it's an all for one mentality, especially where I am at Abbvie and now part of the ERG leadership across the globe. And it's really, I think if I can now, the foundational is understanding, paying attention to where your energy doesn't drain, what fills your cup and gives you the motivation to continue on. And I can honestly say I've always been a very overly committed person in the sense that I say yes to everything. And my bosses get frustrated because they're like, do you have the bandwidth for that? And I'm like, yeah, I can do that. So I do lots of leadership roles and I do lots of outreach. Um, but it's important for me because from bedside nursing to what I do today in my legal career, my compliance leadership, um, I always, I guess, step back and say, what more can I do? And I feel like that uh, understanding that where I started with the values and where it's taken me today, the intersectionality has given me the opportunity just to show up fully as myself and have the space to do it at my current company.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate the transparency and the openness, but I love that through line of people deserve to be protected, heard, and treated with dignity. And you've really anchored to that as your career has evolved across all of these different threads. And I know we'll talk more about that as we get into this. Andrew, same question over to you. From your perspective, what does it mean to build a career that truly aligns with your values? And how did you actually figure out what those values were?
I think I started with my values. I was fortunate enough to be able to come out in high school. I went to an arts high school and really kind of become my authentic self early on. And I know that is a privilege that not
Mhm.
everyone has the chance to do. And so I've always been, and I've also, I've been with my partner, now husband, for a very long time. He was my high school prom date. So,
Oh,
he's been, my backbone, for all of that time. And, as having that support, of a spouse to be able to give me the room I need to pick the
mhm.
jobs that support me, has been amazing. Um, and I have had such a variety of jobs over the years. I don't always think about it as a career. I think about it as a series of jobs, because there is a connection through line between all of my work in marketing and communications and authenticity. Um, but it's sometimes I've ended up in companies I didn't expect to. I did not think I would, be here at Land O'Lakes 10 years ago. But I arrived at Planet Lakes. It's the best company I have ever worked for. So, you know, yeah.
It's amazing the where our journey takes us, right? And the
Mhm.
looking back to where it all started. Now, one of the reasons people are here today, attending a career fair that's going to kick off right after we finish, is that
Mhm.
they're actively figuring out where to take their careers next. And Andrew, you said you didn't expect Land O'Lakes, right? You've ended up
Right.
places you didn't expect. So, something really practical, my next question, what should professionals look for when they're evaluating, is this workplace genuinely inclusive? And on the flip of that, maybe the more important question, what are the red flags they should look out for? Andrew, I'll stay with you on this one.
Yeah. I think the common sense is, look past the logo in June. Is I hear that a lot, especially this month. Um, is Pride visible in January? Do the ERGs have a real budget and executive sponsors? I will say one of the things for Land O'Lakes is I've actually never worked at a company that had an ERG before. I've worked for a lot of small companies, or the corporate work I did was kind of before ERGs were more common. Um, Watch how decisions are made. Are preferred names honored in everyday tools? Are policies actually inclusive of chosen families? That signals a lot. And if you have the opportunity to talk with ERG leaders at a potential employer, they'll tell you the truth. So, talk with people at the company and see if it's really the environment that supports you.
And I think with most companies that have those ERGs, the leaders, if there are leaders and there's budget, they are publicly known who they are, and you should be able to
Mhm.
easily make that connection on LinkedIn
Well,
to have those
it,
conversations.
I was going to say, don't be afraid to ask your
Mhm.
interviewer.
Mhm,
Actually, I've always heard, ask them questions.
mhm,
They like that. That shows initiative.
mhm,
So ask them about the environment and ask if you can talk to any of their ERG leaders.
mhm. Jeffrey, I'm going to flip the same question over to you. Anything you would add from a what should we be looking for when evaluating? Is this place genuinely inclusive or red flags that you think are worth paying attention to?
Yeah, it's interesting because it takes a little bit of subjective data and takes a little bit of objective data to really assess an organization whether or not they are inclusive. And
Mhm,
and and I think there's a difference between being performatively diverse, i.e., you have diversity in the workforce, and one that is genuinely inclusive. I mean, I realize that just because it's diverse doesn't mean it's inclusive. So you need to understand the difference and understand the skills that are necessary for that organization to prop up a culture that's going to allow you to be your authentic self, provide you psychological safety, and allow you to be able to show up. And the only way to get that, if you're interested or invested in assessing, is reaching out to people. And, in the day of social media and day of digital, to me, the bottom line is relationships, relationships, relationships. Um,
mhm.
it's communication and being able to understand how you bridge that with the people that are there. And ultimately, the red flags, clearly, if they don't have support for uh, diversity and or a culture that's open and caring. So I've been in the workforce a long time, and I remember my first job not telling anyone I was gay, not telling anyone who I was, and it feels like I'm fulfilling some sort of untruth about myself. I'm not showing up as fully who I am, but then eventually I was able to do so, and then been with several companies that they valued who I was. And then I had a partner at the time living in New Orleans and able to take my partner to work events in New
Mhm.
Jersey. Um, so I've lived all over the country, but I say this because it's sometimes as you interview and try to figure out where to go, it's really trying to figure out who you have connections with that can give you the inside scoop on that organization. And they're also and I'm speaking on my own behalf. I'm not endorsing these groups, just for everyone to know, but Out and Equal is a corporate organization that ranks companies. Human Rights Campaign also looks at the Equality Index. There are places you can go to
Mhm.
figure out whether or not organizations have the tools and resources and people to assist you.
Yeah, and I thank you for sharing that resource. I think I'm a big fan of collecting resources that we can vet as almost the place of trust to say,
Yeah.
is this a pretty branding play on their talent page, or are
Right.
there real values that are going to support us and allow me to show up as who I am to give my very best self at work? Now, um, Jeffrey, you mentioned the showing up as your true authentic self.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people can likely relate to this one on a very personal level. So, what would your advice be to someone who wants to show up more authentically at work, but is afraid of what it might cost them in terms of that visibility, opportunity, or also just the energy it takes to manage what people are seeing or experiencing?
And I say this as a man in my 50s. So just to be clear, the clarity that I have now is much greater than I did when I was in my 20s. So, um, and the confidence in myself that I now have, which I realize um, I'm impressed with. I don't want to call it younger people, but I went to law school when I was 40, so my classmates were half my age. And I was enamored with their ability to be incredibly um, confident. But you know, one of my friends told me one time that you have to be yourself because everybody else is taken. Um, so, and that resonates with me because you know what? At work, I am me. I realize that there are ways of working in corporate um, hygiene and corporate ways of interacting. I don't violate those, but I bring who I am to the table because I realize that that's the best I can do. And then when I'm the best that I can do, then I'm able to propel our organization forward and accomplish our mission, our goals. And I do it in a way that people want to work with me and people identify me and I don't apologize or I don't run around telling people that I'm a gay, but I certainly share with them, you know, on the personal level when opportunities come forth. But to me, it's starting from a place of you making sure that you're secure in your surroundings. And not everybody has the same experience, the same workplace, but
Mhm.
you have to understand who's there to help support you, who you can trust, and developing relationships again and allies that can help you.
Relationships and allies are, I think, game changers. And I get like the world is becoming so disconnected with
Yeah.
technology and AI and all of that. I have three young kids, and so I see this where it's like they don't want to pick up the phone and make a call to somebody. I'm like, no, this is a very important. We need to be able to communicate.
Yeah.
Um, Andrew, same question over to you.
And it's really the same answer. It's find your people first. You don't have to come out to the whole organization. Just start with one person. Build that support network. Start with a safe, intentional act of authenticity. Add your pronouns to your email signature. And that is good for you, but it also builds a foundation of support for other trans and non-binary people at your company and that you interact with. Even if you don't identify as trans or non-binary, it helps support them.
Mhm,
um, Look for ERG organizations within your company, or if you don't have that, build a support network. And kind of and be honest about your boundaries. And someone told me earlier today, authenticity compounds. So just keep building your authenticity, and people will really get to know you.
absolutely. I do want to make a plug. I still have lots of questions and I could keep this conversation going, but I want to be mindful that we have live viewers. If you have questions, you can use that Q&A feature to submit them. We will see them on the back end here. So please don't be shy, submit your questions. We have about 12 more minutes here before we turn on the career fair application. So, um, Andrew, this next one I'm gonna start with you, and I want to talk
Okay.
about turning points, not the whole journey, but maybe zooming in on one moment throughout your career. And is there at any point a decision, a mindset shift, or an action that you feel made the biggest difference in your career? Like that golden nugget of advice that you just wish someone had told you sooner.
um, don't be afraid to take some chances. I think Land O'Lakes is a good example here. Is um, I've been laid off a few times in my life. Probably 5 or 6 times in the last 15 years. Um, and I I had the ability to take my time to find the next job that fit me right. That is not a luxury everyone has. Um, but also, I didn't see Land O'Lakes as a possibility for me. Um, I was searching through temp agencies, um, through talent agencies. So, and this opportunity for Land O'Lakes came up. It's like, oh, that's a little further than I want to drive. But I hear great things about them. They have a great score on the HRC index. Um, let's give them a try. Let's try it out. And I'm so glad I made that jump. So yeah, don't be afraid to try something.
Yeah.
Um, that's probably it.
Thank you for that. And Jeffrey, what about you? any decision, mindset shift, or action that made a big difference for you? That advice you just wish you had had sooner?
That's a great, once again, a good reflection point. I wish I was more intentional as a young person uh,
Mhm.
of where I wanted to go because I just, was just enjoying my time from day to day, week to week, and then before you know it, you wake up one day you're 20, the next day you wake up you're 30, the next day you wake up you're 40, and then you look back and say, oh, what did I do? But the one thing I would say with intentionality is that I, the biggest impact for me, well, I've had lots, but uh, is when I post Katrina, the hurricane in New Orleans, my partner was living there. I was in New Jersey. I was promoted into a marketing role at a pharma company, and he wanted to give back to the city, which was very uh, uh, arduous time. But I respected it, and I moved back from New Jersey to New Orleans, and I worked in that area, and I did what I could. But I needed more. I always need to be intellectually challenged. So I decided I woke up and I went to law school. So, which is not the easiest. Like it's
Wow.
oh yeah, no, it's yeah. I'm glad I did it. Uh, but it just that moment in time and then the ability how it opened up my thought process and my thinking and expanding even more and I'll say my summer internships were probably my greatest feature of that because I was a law clerk at the Human Rights Campaign in Washington, D.C. I lived there in D.C. for 2 years back in the 90s. And then I worked at the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services in Boston. And I worked at the VA Medical Center, and I was a nurse at the VA previously. So I kind of brought all these experiences together in this intersection of who I am as a person and then ultimately being out and open in law school. I was the editor of the Journal of Law and Sexuality. So I had this opportunity then to partner with Lavender Law, which is the legal side of um, uh, legal education. And so, and they also, for those that are in law, they have a summer program every year in different cities, either DC, Washington, or excuse me, Washington, New York, or Chicago, where you have opportunity to see what public offerings there are. But um, I'd have to say this, that decision going back to law school and taking it on and here to say that I survived and it's 15 years later. So I feel like it was an amazing time, amazing thing.
Yeah, that's a big decision at that point. And when you said it, it sounded so simple of like, I decided to go back and go to law school. Like
Yes.
but it also changes the trajectory of your career, right? Andrew, were you going to add something there?
I have one thing to add, which is don't ignore your retirement. Absolutely keep contributing to your 401k. As my husband's a little bit older and he's looking at retirement right now. And it's like, and I look at my retirement and it's like, oh, I didn't contribute to my retirement for a lot of years. So
Yeah.
don't ignore your retirement.
I always
Well,
say, if there's a match, take the match.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. At least you'd match.
And Andrew, I will share with you. So I'm divorced, gay man.
Mhm.
I adopted a daughter with my ex-husband, and she's 11. So I will tell
Mm,
you, I've got many years to work. So
yeah.
I am contributing. But I will definitely put that sticky note up on my refrigerator to remind me. But I hear you.
Good.
It's important.
Um, there's a question that came in here from our audience. Let me just read through this. I'm going to summarize this. She's built a career with a strong focus on project management, but often comes across project management opportunities where requirements extend beyond project management into areas such as IT, software development, or other technical fields. She's wondering whether she should have pursued an IT-related background before specializing in project management and feels uncertain about whether a career path is the right one, or should she start investing in gaining technical experience to remain competitive given
Mhm.
the current job market? Anything you would advise there based on your own journeys of backgrounds and
Andrew, you want to take that first? Or
Maybe, I've done, I have had my hand in project management, being a creative team project manager in some roles. Having the ability to translate and to understand the projects deeply will serve you. So if you have an opportunity to get deeper into the IT, software development, or technical fields, at least enough that you can speak logically to the projects, kind of find the gaps, keep things moving, that will make you a better project manager.
Mhm.
So and just to add on to that, I don't disagree. I think one of the biggest challenges with starting any job in any new industry or any new field is the nomenclature. It's understanding what people mean by their acronym usage. It's understanding what they mean by
Oh,
the system usage, because maybe it's certainly the subject matter expertise maybe with IT, but it's also understanding what the terms mean and how they relate so that you can project manage to your best ability. Now, with all that said, if I convinced people to hire me for jobs that I didn't have what they wanted, like I didn't have law firm experience, but I convinced them I could do the job. The question is, if it's the job you want and you know what the gap is and you know how to close it from a expertise or education standpoint, you know what, then it's maybe not the right company for you. I don't know, but if you want to do project management and that's what gets you up in the morning and gets you excited, then try to figure out with the requisite um, criteria for the job where you have your gap, and if you could prepare and share with them how you can address that and where your strengths compensate to allow you to be performative in that role. I feel like if we all, I shouldn't say we all, but people on this call likely have 4-year degrees. You've been able to solve problems. That is the number one thing that you need to do in any job.
Mhm.
mhm.
Mhm. Great advice. Thank you to both of you. Sadly, we are almost out of time, and I think we could keep this conversation going for a while, and I appreciate all of the advice and input both of you have shared. I want to close by giving each of you one final moment to leave with our audience. So, is there a message that you would like just everyone watching today to leave with, the one thing that you hope stays with them beyond this session? Andrew, I'll start with you.
Um, okay, so you don't have to choose between your career and your identity. You don't have to wait for permission to bring both into the room. Pick one small, visible step this week and let your work and your values reinforce each other.
Love that. So well said. And
Thank you.
Jeffrey, over to you.
Yeah, I really like what Andrew said, so I will say that. And
Right.
hopefully it's not copyrighted. Um,
No.
so I would like to leave here maybe just sharing that inclusion is not something that happens to organizations. It's something that people build. It requires people to build it one decision at a time with every interaction that you have, with process in every moment of leadership. And I've been with Abbvie now for 8 years, and I can honestly tell you the organization is capable of remarkable things when the values that it uses are courageous and consistent. And so my call to action, maybe back to all of you, is maybe try to do something different or in your sphere of influence. Do one thing this differently this week. To try not to rely on your typical mode of operating and maybe challenge yourself, open a different door, and then just figuring out how you can assess what is necessary for you to build the building blocks of equity and belonging and allows you to feel comfortable and show up as your authentic self.
Amazing, both of you. I
Great.
love that you both issued action items of go take the next step, even if it's small, go do it. Jeffrey, Andrew, thank you so much to both of you for joining this conversation today. You shared so much great insight and wisdom. To everyone watching, Talent Allies Pride Month Career Fair is opening right now. So please go explore, connect with the employers, show up boldly for yourself today. Happy Pride and enjoy the rest of the event. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.